Okay, just a couple of comments from the chairman. Things are going to go a little bit differently tonight. We're going to try to adhere very, very closely to Robert's rules. We used to sign in over here, and we used to ask Christine to sign you in. From now on, you're going to sign in here. You're going to only address the commission. You're going to address the commission through the chair. The commissioners are only going to speak through the chair. This is Robert's rules. This is in our bylaws. This is the way it's going to go. You're going to need to stick to the topic of whatever we're doing the hearing on. If you've already submitted testimony, we don't need to hear your testimony again. If it's new testimony based on something that was continued and we have new information, feel free to come forward. You could probably, if you want to speak tonight, you could probably line up over here, and then as the speaker gets done, we will we'll motion you over. Depending on how many people want to speak on each hearing, there may or may not be a time limit imposed. We do not have a microphone, so I really would love everybody to take one seat more forward, which would be great. You don't all have to do it at once, but I will try to speak as loud as I can. If you do have trouble hearing what we're saying, please come forward and get a better seat. Okay, with that, the first item on the agenda is SE Cam 16-098, 46 Meadow Road, Nichols Auto Parts. Is there any correspondence?
Okay, yes, correspondence list number 3 received through October 3rd, 2016, SE Cam 16-098, 46 Meadow Road, Nichols Auto Parts, deposition of materials, wood chips, map 85, block 69, lot 1, zone I2, 9/21/2016, letter from Carol Zamansky from DEEP, OLISP. 10/3/2016, letter from J. Andrew Bevilacqua, DTC. Okay, this is a letter addressed to the Planning and Zoning Commission to be read tonight. This is in regards to temporary outdoor storage of wood chips at 46 Meadow Road, Nichols Auto Parts, applicant. Dear Commissioners, thank you for referring this application to us for review and comment. Proposal. The applicant proposes to store wood chips outdoors on site for a temporary period of time. The site hosts sensitive coastal resources, the Hammock River and tidal wetlands. The proposed location of the stockpile of wood chips is approximately 25 feet from the coastal jurisdiction line, in parentheses CJL. The latest iteration of the site plan proposes mafia blocks, in quotations, to shield the tidal wetlands from the possible migration of the wood chips. We recommend adding wing walls to the proposed mafia block configuration to prevent migration of wood chips into sensitive coastal resources. A 60-foot proposed mulch berm abuts the CJL. We do not recommend its installation. This material could easily migrate waterward of CJL and may become a violation. Possible violation. It appears that the existing constructed earth berm on the property is partially located waterward of CJL. The material must be removed. Any activity, including fill or removal of fill, waterward of the CJL is subject to permitting requirements of OLISP. We strongly encourage the applicant to contact Susan Bailey, permit analyst at OLISP, at 860-424-3625 to determine how best to remove the material from below CJL to minimize damage to coastal resources and restore the area. Conclusion. We hope these comments are helpful to the Commission. Pursuant to CGS Section 22A-104E, we request that these comments be read into the record at the public hearing for this application. If we can be of further assistance to you in this or any other coastal management of Long Island Sound related matter, please feel free to contact me at 860-424-3138. Sincerely, Carol Zamansky, Environmental Analyst 2, Office of Long Island Sound Programs, Bureau of Water Protection and Land Reuse, and there was a carbon copy sent to Susan Bailey of OLISP.
Thank you, Tim. Is there an applicant or an agent?
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Healy from PZC Group, representing Nichols Auto on this application. I wanted to hand out, I did receive the engineering comments this afternoon, and these are comments that I had addressed verbally at previous public hearings. And so I'm just putting it in writing so that make sure that it's clear to everybody how we responded.
So did you say these are responses from?
Yes.
These are responses from today? I just didn't hear.
No, I had previously commented on this application with this information verbally.
Okay.
It just has not been in writing. This is not new information whatsoever.
Okay, thanks.
Guys, in the future, what we're going to do is through the chair, we're going to say, Mr. Chairman, may I address the applicant?
Okay, we have not made any changes to the plans. I was not privy to the comments from DEEP. I did explicitly go over their previous comments regarding the earth berm, the existing earth berm, as it relates to the coastal jurisdiction line. And as I stated at the last hearing, this berm was in existence prior to 2012, and the coastal jurisdiction line became regulatory in October of 2012. This berm predates the regulatory date of that jurisdiction. The jurisdiction currently is I believe it's 3.4 feet above North American vertical datum of 1988. Now, previous jurisdiction was mean high water mark, which was about, in this area, it's on the plans, give me a second. It was at 1.99. So the actual jurisdiction line went from virtually 2 feet to 3.4 feet in elevation. Okay. Now, that's a topic of discussion I'd be more than happy to have with the EP about this. But also, I introduced into the hearing last meeting that this site has then on a quarterly basis, an environmental firm tests the water quality of the runoff from this site on a quarterly basis, and they've been doing that, I believe, since 2011 or 2012. They have not been able to sample any runoff from the site because it's very pervious, and the berms that have been in place contain the runoff. You follow me? There's no runoff, partially because of the berms and partially because it's very pervious soils. And to remove the berm would be certainly against any recommendations from the environmental firm that's sampling the runoff. And I do have email correspondence to that effect, and I would be more than happy to submit the backup documentation from that. But I think this is a direct conversation that I or someone needs to have with DEP about that regulatory line. Because again, their jurisdiction comes into play as of October 2012. Secondly, I think there was a comment on separating distance that you read into the record. Previous letter, I think it stated it was 80 to 85 feet from the CJL. I think you read into the letter that it was 30. I don't believe that's correct. It's not 30 feet.
Mr. Chairman, it's 25 then. That's to the record.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christine.
If you read the previous letter, I think that person stated it was 85.
75.
Oh, it was 75 previous? Yeah. It's about 80 feet. And in this new letter, they're recommending that block wall is added to wing walls. This earth berm is lined with a block wall, so this is all kind of incorporated to it. It would be pretty simple to have a return. I have no objections to adding a small return on that wall. In fact, that becomes a good divider between that and any car setup, placed in that area. So that would be that 25-foot separation, so that would be a simple add-on. But other than that, we're not adding any additional information. I wanted to keep this very simple tonight and turn it back over to the commission if you have any questions regarding the statement that I provided to you and the information I have just stated at this point in time.
Okay, we usually hold our commissioners' questions till after the public hearing portion. I would let you know that some of those issues you brought up with DEP will need to be between you and DEP. That's not what this body does.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you for your time, Mr.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can we read into the record the engineering comments that were made for October 3rd? Or were they distributed, or can we get copies of them?
Certainly.
And this is a letter addressed to Eric Knapp, Zoning Enforcement Officer, Town of Clinton, 54 East Main Street, Clinton, Connecticut. Subject 46 Meadow Road, Planning and Zoning Application P&Z 16-098, DTC number 16-157-126. Dear Mr. Knapp, as requested, we have completed our review of the revised plan provided for the above referenced application. The information reviewed consisted of the following: plan entitled Zoning Location Survey, Site Plan Nichols Auto Parts Incorporated, 46 Meadow Road, Clinton, Connecticut, consisting of one sheet dated June 27th, 2016, revised through August 28, 2016, prepared by BSC Group, scale 1 inch equals 40 feet. Based on this review And following the comment numbering in our July 29th, 2016 letter, we have the following revised comments. 1, a new 60-foot-long wood mulch berm has been added to the plans to help address this perimeter gap. I have no further comments on this item. Number 2, no new information has been provided on the nature of the wood chip material. 3, no new information has been provided on the site operations. We suggest that the board may wish to postpone action on this application until additional details on the nature of the stockpiled materials and the operations is provided for review. Please review the above comments with the board and contact the undersigned if you have any questions. Sincerely, J. Andrew Bevilacqua, P.E., Associate and Manager of Civil Engineering, DTC Incorporated, with a carbon copy to BSC Group via email.
Okay. At this point, we're going to open the meeting up to the public. As I stated before, please come up. State clearly for the recorder your name and your address. We're also going to ask you to write down your name and the address, and that's so that we can properly put all your information into the official record. While you're up here, remember you were giving testimony. That you were giving testimony to us, so we're going to need you to face forward. If I feel that you're turning to the crowd and trying to speak to the crowd, I'm going to shut you off, and we're going to go. We're going to move on. I usually ask 3 times in each category. Would anybody like to speak in favor of this application? Then I say 3 times, would anybody like to speak against this application? And then 3 times, does anybody have any general comments? The reason I do this is so that nobody in the audience doesn't get it, everybody gets a chance to speak, and can't say that I didn't formally ask them to speak. So, with that, would anybody like to speak in favor of this application? Would anybody like to speak in favor of this application? Would anybody like to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Would anybody like to speak against this application? So if people would like to speak against this application, I know we have one. The one can come forward, and then I would request that anybody else who would like to speak just slide up over here, and I'll motion you over when that speaker is done. One additional note, if you've already submitted testimony on this, we are not looking for more of the same testimony. We are looking for testimony based on anything that has been changed from the original hearing, or anything that you have forgotten to say from the original hearing. With that, please come forward.
So, my name is Matthew Kennedy, 38 Meadow Road. Well, Mr. Chairman, Commission, thanks for letting me speak before you. What I would like to add on to previous testimony that I've made. As you recall, I'm a hydrogeologist, I'm an environmental consultant by trade, and I do work for people such as the applicant. One thing that jumped out at me, and I've seen it be a problem on lots of projects, and it's come up in testimony at least once, and I have not heard the applicant or his representative speak to it, is that I live there right next to this area. I know what portion of the neighborhood is within the 100-year floodplain. I don't know what the commission's familiarity is with the 100-year floodplain, but we've heard testimony of there being fill material brought into this site, and we've also been told that everything that comes into the site is inspected. Now, we're told that this is an auto salvage yard. Now, it's a metal scrap operation, which I'm not sure when it became that and if that was a permitted use. And then I also know for a fact, because I've seen it and I've heard testimony regarding it, that there's been fill material brought onto the property. The movement of fill material around in the state of Connecticut it's kind of a gray area. There's two different parts of DEP who regulate it. There's the solid waste regulations, and then there's the remediation standard regulations. I'm here today to also speak to flood regulations. My understanding is that there's limitations on filling within the 100-year floodplain, and the reason for that is that, you heard the applicant talk about different elevations above mean sea level. We're talking properties here that are 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 feet above mean sea level. So it doesn't take much of a storm to bring that water into the Hammock River and its salt marsh. My concern is that, I feel blessed that we have this salt marsh, because I grew up in an area where the salt marsh had been filled, and our houses would get filled up to the first level of the home, so much so that those homes have been knocked down. Here, we have a somewhat healthy salt marsh that has been restricted in some areas, including the earthen berm and including the placement of fill material on this property, which I think is in violation of regulations for filling within the 100-year floodplain. So Mr. Chairman, I believe if we're talking about coastal area management, we're talking about special exceptions. I do not believe we have heard a response, a satisfactory response that I'm aware of, that speaks to why this property should be permitted to move additional materials onto the property if they're already not meeting the solid waste regulations regarding, reporting on the scrap metal, as I testified before, and, DEP's comments, which I'd like to hear. I don't believe they're probably nullified by that year of that jurisdictional line, and then filling the floodplain itself. There's a cost to filling the floodplain. That floodplain and what that property is used for now has the ability, as does a lot of my yard, but not my home, thank God. It has the ability to receive water during a storm, especially if we were to have a 100-year storm, 1% chance every year. That means there's, about a 30% chance every 30 years you're going to have one of these big storms. And, we're talking the highest, I think, the highest elevation on this site, I think, is a flood elevation of 7. So water should be able to come into this property. Saying that it's bermed and that's keeping runoff from going into the salt marsh, to me, it sounds funny, because this is a natural system here where water should be able to come and go. This isn't the ninth ward down in Louisiana where you levy the entire property. This is a flood zone. So a flood zone needs to operate as a flood zone, and there's a cost if it's not allowed to. And that cost is that the water will have to go somewhere else. And it's already restricted by Meadow Road, but it's also restricted by the Amtrak line. So we have a lot of restrictions to the Hammock River and its salt marsh. And filling of some sort of fill material. I know it's contained concrete debris. I'm not sure, what types of soils, but I just don't think it's appropriate. So therefore, I don't think it's appropriate to to permit additional movement of materials onto the site, at least until such time that all those things are taken care of and are straightened out, because they clearly aren't, in my opinion. And that's it, and Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to, that was well done. I'm going to limit everybody to 5 minutes, looking at the size of the crowd. So just to give you a heads up. Next. And could you just state your name and your address for the reporter, please? Just out loud.
Yeah, Diane Rivetta, 22 Beach Road Extension. I would like to kind of state the fact that I think that our town needs to pay more attention to people that ask for permission and get the proper permits before they do business or construct anything in town, and not ask for forgiveness when they have done something egregious for 2 years, 2 months, or 2 days. Asking for permission is the way our town should be monitoring the people that try to do things in town and not asking for forgiveness. And that's my take on what's been happening on Meadow Road. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Would anybody else like to speak against the application? Would anybody else like to speak against the application?
I have something, Pamela Fritz, 14 Old Road. I'd have some materials that I have not previously given to the commission that I'd like to read out, please.
Ms. Fritz, can I have one for the public record?
Yeah, I do have one, as a matter of fact. Thank you. Okay, I would like to point out something, and I'm aiming this directly at the application, which calls for the materials, the deposit of materials, or the bringing in of materials for the wood business. But I need to take you back to these 2 photographs in the first part of what I've given to you. And that is, this is a photograph, the first 2 pages, if you look at this please, is a photograph of the property, of this property, taken in 1965. And you can see it's completely a automobile graveyard, if you will. The next photograph was taken in it's on both sides, I think, on some of these, I'm sorry, was taken in 1995. And that is also showing it as completely covered with automobiles as a graveyard. The next section I've given you, and I'm going to refer back to your own section 27 about non-conforming structures, Clinton regulations, that have to do with the fact that property was utilized for these purposes, as you can see in these 2 photographs. And then since it was purchased by the present property owner, it was used for other purposes. And I have some photographs here which were taken from Meadow Road, actually, and I've identified specifically, and these photographs, incidentally, if you'll notice, were taken starting on the 7/17 of 2016. I have previously given you photographs at the last 2 hearings which show wood chip piles and other activities that were not what this was intended for previously, and were not, so therefore including the wood chipping operation, but also other activities. And I point out to you, this as late as just this summer. There is huge wood chip piles. One of the pictures I had given you previously showed you the wood chip processing piles back earlier than this, for which I might add, there is no permission. There has been no application to do any of that work on this site. Nothing has been applied for since the new ownership took over. And incidentally, in your non-conforming section, you also refer to, I'll get back to this in a minute, the Connecticut General Statutes, and I meant to bring something with me tonight, because there's a very specific, and I'd like to say this right now for the record, there's very specific under Connecticut General Statutes, and I don't have that statute in front of me, I believe it's somewhere around Section 14-67G. I believe is the section of the Connecticut statutes. And it does give you definitions of junkyards versus metal recycling
Ms. Fritz,
facilities.
I'll stop you right there. We are here tonight to talk about wood chips.
I'm going to talk about it right now.
You have 1 minute left.
I have been speaking for 5 minutes, I'm sorry, I have not. And as you notice, there's a small crowd.
Ms. Fritz?
I will take the minute, and I will take my time.
I'm going to give you 2, and
Thank
then
you.
you're done.
I'll be happy
Please do not talk about scrap metal, please talk about wood chips.
Okay, I'm going to point immediately to the picture, as you can see, the existing wood chips with the automobiles. I'd like to point out to you that there is gas tanks in close proximity. You talk about wood chips, you have to talk about safety, all right? You have to talk about safety. The perimeter fill was already addressed earlier this evening and brought up, so I would just like to point that perimeter fill and that picture and another close-up of the gas tank that shows you its proximity to the other automobiles and the wood chip. Please go to the next page, and you will again see the large pile of material. You can see that I just wanted to compare the height of the pre-existing wood chip piles for which no approval was obtained, and within proximity to not only the automobile, but to the large pile of other materials and auto-related parts. And at this time, I want to point out also, it's noticed in this picture that the oil from the autos does not have the required drainage system. There is fire hazards relating to this wood chip operation that have been in existence for a very long time. On the next picture, 1, 2, 3. Again, just a good perspective to show you the activity and the wood chipping activity that has been going on there for a long period of time. And there were pictures previous to this. And then also, and it was referenced tonight by OSLIP, the fill in the wetlands, and I wanted to point that out to you since it was referenced this evening in your letter from the DEEP. The last thing has really not much to do with the fact, except I brought the fact that this roof was there, fine, it's not a wood chip issue. But I would like to point out, in case you are interested, that in section 27, it says, section 27, under 27.5, junkyard, any motor vehicle junkyard, as defined by Connecticut General Statutes, shall be completely surrounded with a solid fence at least 8 feet high.
Ms. Fritz,
This is
you are
not an
done.
8-foot-high fence.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I would like to speak directly to the audience. Once again, you are giving testimony tonight. The testimony is regarding wood chips. I do not have a choice but to stop somebody if they are not talking about the actual application that is before us. Please do not waste your time. You have 5 minutes. Please do not waste your time talking about something that I am legally obligated to stop you from talking about. Would anybody else like to come up and speak against the application?
Still Stankwith, 40 Meadow Road. All right, what I can tell you is the chips are coming in, but not as much because he's not charging anything for them. 2 is he's supposed to be operating at 7 o'clock in the morning, and he had trucks coming down there 3 weeks ago at 6 o'clock in the morning. If you want to be a good neighbor, abide by the rules. And when he's loading the chips on the trailer, I can smell them in my yard. So just think about what they're going to be doing and how you're going to feel if your windows are open or you're in your yard and you're smelling wood chips, besides everything else that goes on there. You know, something's got to come to a halt. You guys bring this on yourself. You guys made it happen.
Listen, I'm going to stop you right
You
there.
can stop me.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to speak against the application? Anybody else who would like to speak against the
Can a
application?
question be asked?
Would you like to speak against
Can
the
I ask a
application?
question?
Sure, ma'am.
Where's those wood chips originating?
No, you may not ask that question. If you had a procedural question, I could answer it for you.
I just asked where they're coming from.
It's not part of our meeting tonight, ma'am. Would anybody, would anybody like to speak against the application?
I would.
Jamie West, 3 East Shore Drive. What are we going to do when these wood chips catch on fire? How is he going to protect the neighborhood? And I'm asking this because we have a wood chipping process right down the street on Old Knob that's recently caught on fire. How is he going to protect that neighborhood? That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you very much. Would anybody else like to speak against the application? And this will be the last time. Would anybody else like to speak against the application? Does anybody have any general comments about the application? Mammy, come on up. If anybody else has general comments, please line up on the wall.
My name is Gary Bouquet. I live at 6 Mohawk Drive in Clinton. The comment that I want to make is that this operation, Nichols operation, has been operating since 1965 without permits, and as far as I know...
Mrs. Stein, I have to stop you.
Yes.
Please, you need to stick to the wood chip application, not what happened in the past, nothing about the, nothing about metal, nothing about cars,
Okay.
wood chips only, respectfully.
Okay.
And it's
All right,
okay
I
if you have
withdraw my-
nothing else to say.
I withdraw my comment then.
Okay, thank you. Kind of here, ma'am.
My name is,
Your name and address for the record.
Judith Hirsch.
Judy Hirsch?
Yeah,
Thank you, Ms. Hirsch.
you're welcome. I have a general question because I'm not too sure about the whole thing anyway. But my concerns are, if they're wood chips, where they're coming from, and they could be contaminated with all kinds of insecticides and pesticides and so on and so forth. And when it does rain, that will bleed into the earth that it's on. Secondly, wood chips have a tendency to catch termites really big time, and there are residential areas around there. So I think we ought to think about that in terms of should this be passed or not passed.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else with general comments?
Mr. Mr. Chairman, I have a question. Is that a general comment?
Typically, we do not ask questions.
We don't ask questions?
You can do it through the chair, and let's hear it.
I can?
Come on up.
Okay.
Please state for the record.
Matthew Kennedy, 38 Meadow Road. You got me? Okay. Real quick, you won't have to institute any time limits on my behalf, but okay, I've been to, the public hearing's been open for, 3 sessions now, and a bunch of people have given testimony, the applicant has given testimony, and what is the mechanism by which these people and myself get to find out how, if there was a response to our concerns, and what that response was, so that we can understand if this body is weighing, the information that we brought forward. And if you could just explain that to the group, I would be very appreciative.
I'd be happy to.
Okay, thank you.
Our next meeting, regular meeting. So for the general public, if this hearing is closed tonight, this matter would be taken up at our next meeting on the 17th, in this, I believe in this room. Everybody is a public meeting. The more people, the better. And at that meeting, the public is not allowed to speak. That's the time where the commission will deliberate. They will be able to take a stance. They will be able to bring up some of the issues that they heard in the public hearing. They will be able to refute some of the things that were brought up in the public hearing. At some point, that somebody may make a motion to approve or deny. We'll have a second, we'll have the discussion, and at some point, we'll have a vote. It's very important to know, and that would be the place where you would see where your concerns were expressed. Remember, there are more concerns than just yours. There'll be your concerns. There will be all this. Everything that we took in as testimony will be weighed, and a decision will be rendered. And that's the process. That's been the process since 1960,
Well, as long as
since zoning was started. It's the process that happens, the second and third Monday of every month in this room. So, thank you, Matt. Any other general comments? Any other general comments?
I may. Kirk Carr, 9 Osprey Common South. As a commission, you have quite a bit of latitude when it comes to special exceptions. And while you have attempted, at least the chairman's attempted, to prevent discussions of other violations with relation to the special exception, I believe other violations that have been discussed should be a material in making your decision. And while the chairman has not allowed us to discuss some of these other violations, and I'm not going to go into it, I think what you'll find in my notes deal with it and give you some idea of where your regulations are being violated in other areas, in which case I think you have every right to deny this special exception based upon those other violations. So the questions that I have for you tonight to think about is what non-conforming uses at Nichols prior to June 15, 1965. Clearly there was a business of salvaging auto parts that existed in 1965.
Mr. Carr, I'm going to stop you right there.
Okay, well then I would say that you're out of order, but I will allow you to do that.
That's fine.
The questions are in there for
Mr.
you.
Carr,
The questions are, excuse me, the questions are in there
Please
for
remove
you to
Mr.
read.
Carr from the room. Officer, please remove Mr. Carr from the room. Do we have any more general comments? we have any more general comments? And last time, do we have any more general comments? Okay, at this point, the public participation is over. We are now, as commissioners, going to question the applicant. Unfortunately, if you think of something that you didn't think of before, you can't bring it up. So my apologies, it's just part of the procedure. So if the applicant will come back forward, that'd be great. Thank you for coming back up, and I'm sorry for that interruption. Do any of the commissioners have any questions for the applicant based on any of the new testimony? Might be none.
I've got a question for you. There's a picture here that alleges there's a gas tank here. Can you tell me what is in that tank?
Yeah.
That's our gas processing area along with the oil extraction.
Sir, could you please, for the public record, state your name? Possibly affiliation with it.
David Waddington. I own the majority of shares in Nichols Auto Parts. And regarding this picture right here, sir, should I direct this to you? Okay, this tank right here is a gas holding tank. It's extracted with a vacuum system to avoid any sparks. It's a double wall tank. It's EPA approved, and that's quite a distance from there to the oil tanks. And it's on concrete slab, and the buildings surrounding it are steel. Like those are two steel seat containers with a steel roof. Any other questions?
Do any of the commissioners have any more questions for the applicant?
I just have a question for staff to ask for clarification from Deeds. The previous letter from August 17th mentioned 75 feet from the CJL. The applicant mentioned 80 feet. This previous letter, as of today, I believe you said it mentions 25 feet. So if you could just get clarification from them, please, before the next meeting.
Yeah, I want to go to another question. A couple of times it was mentioned that fill was being grown on site. Is there something other than wood chips? Or is it, was the fill a general term that,
Sir, pictures?
the pictures don't really show what I think of as fill, which is
Yeah.
dirt.
No, I'm not aware of that. You know, we went out, we did the survey, and we documented what was there for ground elevations. You know, certainly with this type of material, there's certainly traction issues, you know, with that pervious sands. You know, you can imagine it's almost like beach sand, so, you know, there may be a need to stiffen that up a little bit. I couldn't imagine anything else.
Any other questions? I would entertain a motion to close this public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion? Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Please raise your hand. It was unanimous. Thank you very much.